this just in, guys, you might suck.
You might suck. And you need to look in the mirror and say, hey, do I suck?
What's up, man? It's the Gross Up.
It's the Gross Up.
For Show Up.
I'm Ben Cross.
This is Thomas Bailey. Well, this is Thomas Bailey.
And we are the Gross Up.
Today is a beautiful day.
It is. It's 15, windy outside,
Really
snow
quick,
on the
though.
ground.
I know that you have an amazing topic at hand for us today. And you kind of previewed me, so I'm excited about it, actually. But my question to you right now is, when do you stop saying Happy New Year? When? What day in January do you stop saying Happy New Year? I know that this is huge for the industry right now.
Good.
Huge.
This is huge for the industry.
For the industry.
For all of you who send emails, especially people in sales and account management,
About, like,
who are trying to butter people up with the first email of the new year.
When do you stop saying Happy New Year?
I haven't hit that day yet. My
That's
rule,
a good way to put it.
My rule is less of a date on the calendar and more of a how many emails have I sent you so far this year. And if it's the first email,
Okay.
then the last thing we were talking about is prepping for holidays and the new year.
Yep.
Then I'm saying, hey, I hope you had a happy new year. I hope you had a happy new year.
Because you don't know.
And a lovely holiday with family. How's Joyce doing? And then
Shout out to Joyce.
Shout out to Joyce, the phantom spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And then I proceed to get on with business.
Okay.
What about you?
How was the New Year?
You obviously have an opinion on
How
this.
was the New Year is definitely different than Happy New Year, like just in an email. I just think like typing out Happy New Year as an intro.
Oh, that's
or just randomly in the email thing is different than asking like, how were you? That's a caring. I was surprised, Ben. You actually said something that was thoughtful and caring.
that's how we keep the relationship fresh.
Yeah, there you go. But no, I mean, that's
years.
different. But Happy New Year just randomly. I think that 2 weeks in, so the 14th, just done.
14th, 2 weeks.
Just done.
Wow, so you're putting people on 2 week notice
To say
a week late.
To say Happy New Year, yeah. So just basically no, like just if you're
So
still
if you're
doing
saying
it,
Happy New Year, you need to
just
stop.
just stop.
Unless
it's like, hey, man,
Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, isn't it like the 24th or something?
2 days.
Can we verify that? Can we get?
Oh, jeez, are we?
Can we?
Yeah, guys, can you look it up really quick? We'll get our
just
production
in the ear.
We'll
And
get
just
our
give it to me in the
production
ear in a minute. He's production.
I'm production.
He's the producer.
That's one thing.
That's my Puffy right there.
You know, all in the background dancing in the videos.
Diddy and Biggie. There we go.
Oh man,
it could work. It could work.
It
could
is
actually
working
work.
though, sort of.
Yeah. And in the end, you're rich and running marathons, and I'm dead.
Just give me the rich part. I got the marathon thing down, and I just don't want you to be dead.
But I'd also be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Shout out to Big.
You gotta do whatever you gotta do. Takes a long
Can we just get on with the Lunar New Year, man?
25th, January 25th.
So I was close, actually. I was close. Shout out to my people.
So if you're gonna celebrate the Lunar New Year,
then you say Happy New Year. So I think actually you can kind of like extend it. Do you get another 2 weeks after?
No.
Do you just start emailing
No,
people
no.
from Southeast Asia?
No.
Happy New Year, like February 8th.
No.
Like Happy New Year.
Or happy different New Year than the other New Year that I was saying. I'm just saying there's other more creative ways to start a conversation. So
and there's
just
Rosh
don't open
Hashanah.
it.
Isn't Rosh Hashanah Jewish New Year?
Just don't open it like that. Just say hello, blah blah. If you're gonna talk about the New Year because you don't have anything else to say, how was? Hope that things went well. Hopefully you got what you wanted from Santa.
Thomas will publish a template on our site.
Yeah, we'll give you a whole. Maybe I'll throw it up here.
Alternatives to Happy New Year
dates
emails.
that you need to stop saying certain things. Is your Christmas tree still up?
One of them is.
Yeah, mine is too. So I mean,
my wife likes to sit and bask in the glow of the Christmas tree with the lights off at night.
The reason why I'm talking about this though is because just sit there.
She says bask.
Bask. So, the reason I'm talking about this is because today I unplugged the Christmas tree and I said something out loud about it, and then my wife said, she said, what? And I'm like, Happy New Year. She's like, it's like the 20th. And I was like, the Christmas tree's still up. That was my thing. So if the Christmas tree's still up, I'm going to say Happy New Year every day until the Christmas tree's taken down. I'm not taking it down.
Super passive aggressive.
It's very passive
How's
aggressive.
it been working for you?
Just started happening today, so we'll see.
If you get home and that Christmas tree is still up, what happens?
Extra passive aggressive. Double down on the passive aggressiveness.
It's my kind of extra.
Just go all the way with it. Topic.
Yes. Topic today is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
And Thomas actually thought I meant like something specific, like, is such and such, is going to the AMSA conference worth it? No, I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm like, this is a general rubric for you to view life decisions with.
Life. Is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
Or, so are you saying, should we, go ahead.
Yeah, so, well, I mean,
because I'm like saying, should we be asking if something's worth it, or should we stop asking if something's worth it?
Great question. So we should stop.
It's almost like we talked about this.
We should stop. Okay, I believe. Let me back up. Let me unpack this a little bit, right? Because people are like, what do you mean? Is what worth it?
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? I don't believe it's really a case by case scenario. I don't believe this has less to do with what you're asking about, the event or the investment that you're asking about. I think it has more to do with you asking that question. PA, can you get that, please?
It has more to do.
Is that important?
Blake Burns?
Is it? No, definitely not.
It has more to do.
Shout out to Blake.
It has more to do with what?
All right, so it has more to do with the mentality of the person asking the question.
Okay.
Right, and so this is a question that we ask ourselves all the time in business. Mm-hmm. Is it worth it? Right? Mm-hmm. Is going to a conference worth it? Mm-hmm. Is hiring that new salesperson or coordinator, is that worth it? Is getting into this new market, is it worth it? Mm-hmm. And it's such a poorly designed question, and yet we use this as the lens to make so many business decisions, and in some cases personal decisions, but generally business decisions and decisions that involve money, right? Mm-hmm. And really it's a question of ROI.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, people have been asking this question forever in business, but now it's, not now, but just for, it's the most fancy way to say it is, what's the ROI on this?
Mm-hmm. Is it going to have a positive ROI?
Yeah, and
am I going to get out more than I put in?
And I think people do, like, especially in management positions, pull back on the what's the ROI, because sometimes, when you ask what's the ROI on, like, say, a conference, that there's some definite, there's some evident pluses for you, you attending. So you back off. Well, is it really worth it? Like, you kind of like make it a little easier to stomach the, because what's the ROI is just so crazy to me. Unless it's...
Yeah, people don't talk like that, generally speaking.
Yeah,
unless you're a marketing executive who's trying to sound really...
But I'm really interested to see, like, dive into that a little bit deeper. Like, how should we be...
All right, well, let's play it through. Let's play it through, right? So, is it worth it? Well, that's a ROI calculation. And ROI is one of the most impossibly difficult things to calculate. Yeah. I did a session about this at ERC, about the ROI of mobility programs, and basically what I ended up with is
that's even crazier.
You can't actually calculate ROI. You can come up with metrics that you can pretend to calculate ROI, but you really can't calculate ROI. And at the end of the day, you have to rely on your senses as a well-seasoned leader who understands things when they see it, and they know it when they see it, and you have to be okay with that, and your boss has to be okay with that. But going back to the is it worth it, right? Let's play it through. So how do we calculate that? Is it worth it, right? Well, if it costs, let's use the conference, right?
Yeah, sure.
If it costs
say $5,000
to go to this conference, and that means I need to close $50,000 worth of business in order to begin paying, to be neutral, and then after 50,000, I'm positive ROI on this conference, right? And then what people will do is they want to get back and they will say, how many clients did you close? Well, gosh, I got some people in the hopper.
Right.
And then, like, you won't know the answer to that for like a year or 2 years. Yeah, and oftentimes, if you don't go to the conference the second and third year, that's when you're actually closing the business. So so my point is, or growing as an individual, whatever your objective is when you go to these conferences. So my point in saying that is the ROI on it might be so far off into the future or unable to be calculated that oftentimes the only real way to know is it worth it, Thomas,
is to do it, is to go,
is to try it. It's to try it out.
Yeah.
And to believe in yourself and bet on yourself and bet on your people.
Like, Thomas, call out me in class.
I just want to make sure you're not sleeping. The eyes are getting heavy over here.
Yeah. I mean, no, you have to. I understand though. When you're a business leader, I like the way in the beginning you said it's more like it sounds like it's more of a perspective switch. Because if you're asking from the wrong vantage point, I guess, then you're asking the wrong question. But if you're asking from the right side of it, it's the right question.
So now we say the only way to find out is it worth it is to do it.
Right. So
therefore, when we ask ourselves, is it worth it? The answer must always be
yes.
Yes. And so now here you are. Anytime you hear, is it worth it? And what's funny is right before we went on camera, a colleague of mine called me. Mm-hmm. And she's like, hey, I want to go to this event. It's $75.
It's worth it. Yes, go.
And she's like, yeah, will you come with me? And we're like, oh, gosh, it's on a Thursday night. Mm-hmm. Thinking, okay, I'm doing the calculus. I got the kids, I'm like, don't want to spend the money. And then I got to deal with my boss asking me what was the money for and who I met with and what I did. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't know, is it worth it? And as soon as I said, dang, I wish you didn't ask me that question.
Yeah.
Because I wish you would ask me any other question. Because here I'm about to go on camera and start talking about, is it worth it? And I know when I hear the question, is it worth it? The answer is always yes. So I stopped it right there. I said, shut it down. I said, here, the answer is yes. We got to go.
But, okay, so in that situation, right?
Challenge me on this.
The answer, I agree that, in most business situations, if you're thinking about something strategic or like attending something, if you've gone and you decide that we're not going back, that's a different, you're still going to ask, is it worth it? But maybe the answer at that point is no.
Yeah, but here's the other thing, right? Have you ever seen that cartoon where somebody's like digging for gold?
Oh, and they stop.
And they're like 2 inches from the gold.
But that is...
How many people are going to these conferences, and they're 2 inches away from making a name for themselves?
Okay.
They're 2 inches away from learning that key piece of information. They're 2 inches away from closing that client.
But okay, so if you go the opposite direction, is it worth it or what's the ROI is pretty much like it's an unsolvable, equation, right? But if you go the other way though, and then just always think of it as like that one more thing could have done it, you'll be digging in the wrong hole.
I got a better question for you, right? Instead of saying, is it worth it, right? Let's stay on the conferences, right? Because it's
easy.
Conference season's coming up, and we are planning our budgets.
People are really
We're planning our budgets for 2020. We got AMSA coming up in March. Dispatchers Convention, which is another really cool one nobody knows about. That's coming up in April.
I've never gone, and I ask people, is it worth it? They go, oh man,
is it worth it?
But okay, listen though. Listen though. If you ask somebody, is it worth it, and they answer you with all the wrong reasons why they go, like if you ask the wrong person why they go to IAM we know is
play it through. What do you mean?
If you say like, hey, no, so somebody says they go to IAM, right?
You're gonna name a person.
No.
You're gonna name a person and what they said to you.
So they say.
This is about to get actually good for a second.
So you say, hey, is it worth it? I know it's worth it. So I've never asked this question of IAM, so it's not real. So they go, oh yeah, it's awesome because it's so much. I get to party and I stay out till 5 a.m. every time. It's awesome and whatever. That's the wrong answer. That's the wrong reason to go.
So you hear that. So you hear that from him or her, and what conclusion do you draw from that?
I'm gonna ask somebody else.
I need more information.
Because that's
you gotta consider the source,
right?
Because then you'd be like, oh well, because a lot of bosses do this, a lot of bosses do this.
That's what
it's just a drink fest.
That's what I'm getting at, right? So
just a drink fest.
Yeah, but I mean,
life is a drink fest. It's what you make it. Like you can either drink
it
or not drink it. You know what I mean? It's like fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life. Son, that's from Animal House. But my point is, I mean, life is what you make it. Conferences are what you make it.
Yeah,
investments of any sort is what you make it.
So, but back to your example though, when your colleague called you. So what if she says like, "Hey, is it worth it?" And then you say, "Okay, let's think about this." The answer is yes in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean it has to be, is it worth it for all 3 of us or 5 of us to go, right? And the answer be no, that maybe it's worth it for us to be there because you're thinking about it. It's a good opportunity. So we're going to send you. You go, check it out. And so the answer is a partial yes in that situation. Why can't, that's not the same thing as saying.
First of all, if somebody asks me a question, I have to stop them and say that's a ridiculous question. You need to rephrase the question. The question is, you know, how much business do you think you're going to get out of it? That's a more precise question, and I'd say I don't know.
Who's there?
Who's going to be there that you want? How about this question? I can't say how much business am I going to get out of it, but I can answer the question: who's going to be there that you'd like to meet?
What's the potential?
Who's going to be there that you'd like to meet? What is the best possible outcome?
Yeah.
What is the worst possible outcome? What is the probability of these 2 outcomes? What are you going to do to ensure that you have the best possible outcome and not the worst possible outcome?
But then,
if you go to a conference every 2 weeks, how do you plan to follow up with each one of those leads and nurture them to fruition?
Yes. So
these are questions that can actually be answered.
And then so the answer is yes to is it worth it to go to 50 conferences a year? Yes, in some way, shape, or form. But
yes, if you do it right,
you may have to. Yes. Some may have more potential than others, so you have to decide.
But here's the thing: how do you even know? There's so many people out there that are watching this right now that have never been to a conference, and we're on the conference vibe, but this really goes with anything. This really can go with hiring a key person,
marketing.
Taking that vacation with your family.
Oh, that's worth it. That's a dumb question.
But how many people pass on that?
That's because they're crazy. I mean,
I pass on. I'm trying to get my wife to go to Italy with me right now. She doesn't want to go.
I'll go.
Yeah, I know, man. I got a lot of people that
Iris and my wife and your wife can watch the kids, bro. I'm just saying. Sorry.
Anyway, point being is, though, there's a lot of things that we pass up on in life because we don't think it's worth it or we can't prove to ourselves. But if we've never done it, we're like the wrong person to ask. Like we need to and we need to ask a different question.
Yeah. So what question I mean that's what I mean I'm 100% I agree with you because people stop doing things in their personal lives. Companies don't take that leap which will leave them behind. They don't go to the right spots because they're just so used to going to this one thing over and over. They don't take a chance to make a change.
So what's a more constructive framework to use then?
Yeah,
is it
like
worth
a simple one though, because
is it worth it as a lazy and inevitably unproductive framework?
But
because the answer people always give themselves is no because they can't
quantify
the question.
If you're asking the question, you're already doubting.
Yes, but let's flip it and say what's a more constructive, actionable framework that's that will enable us to get the outcomes we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
That's not an automatic no, because anybody that tells you a hard no is basically useless. I have this theory, right? And in my life, if somebody just tells me no, like a hard no, they're just useless. I need to know, probably not, but if you wanted to do it, here's how you would. And that's the kind of answer I'm looking for as a business leader. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. A lot of people don't do that. But if you were to do it, here's how you might do it and be successful. Okay, cool. Let me look at that. So let's take the same. Let's go back and play through the conference thing, right?
Or I disagree or no, but here's why.
Here's why I don't. Here's why I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But let me make a counterpoint and give it to you and say, go for it if you want to.
So what's the counter to this problem? I mean, because it is.
So instead of starting from a place of no, with is it worth it, then let's start from a place of yes. How can we make it? How can we achieve the best possible outcome?
Pros and cons.
How can we achieve the best possible? What does the best possible outcome look like? Okay. Who's going to be there? What does the best possible outcome look like? How are we going to ensure that we get to the best possible outcome? How are we going to ensure that we follow up properly and get people from here in the sales cycle to here in the sales cycle. What are some of the key, let's do a SWOT analysis, old school SWOT analysis, right? What are some of the weaknesses and threats in the argument? What are some of the threats? What could go wrong?
Yeah.
I could get the flu, and not even be able to go.
Get there,
people could not show up. Other people cannot show up that I anticipate seeing. I could not run into them. I could not possess the courage or preparation to execute the plan.
Yep.
Or
I could just be stuck with all the wrong people and situations past.
And when you start using specifics that are actionable like that, you can say, well, if you're worried about not being prepared or having the courage to execute the plan, let's work on your preparedness.
Yeah.
Let's set some meetings. Let's understand the way you operate, and let's set you up for success. So that now you've built a plan, so that you go into it with confidence. You say, yeah, I'm spending $5,000, but hey, we've got a very detailed plan here to be successful, and I have confidence that Thomas is going to execute on it.
Yeah.
Because at the root of is it worth it is a lack of confidence in one's own abilities to execute. And confidence, as you know, is kind of what you make it,
Yeah, boy, that's not kind of. But so I guess, so with that framework, right? So you've shifted from a negative perspective on the situation of is it worth it to a positive one.
It's all about mentality,
right? So mentality shifts, right? So now you're thinking from a positive standpoint. How can we make this worth it? But then in a business situation or family budget, whatever you got to do, right? You use that information that you have, line up whatever your budget is for the year, whatever your schedules look like for other situations, or whatever that may interfere with certain conferences or trips to Italy or whatever. Then you can decide from a positive place what's the best option. And then once you've done that, though, I feel like then you're still, even if you pick the same 3 conferences that you go to every year, based on this new perspective, you're still making, I think at that point you're making the best choice that you've ever made. Because if you look at it, if I go to 6 conferences a year, right, and I wanted to make a change and switch it up a little bit, right? And if I look at those 2 that they're trying to throw at me from a negative place, I'll never really go through what you said and really look at the real opportunities in that. And so I'm making a blind decision by just saying, based on my emotions or my lack of confidence or whatever, and just saying no. And so from this way, though, a company can make a very strategic effort. If they're not going to do 8 or 10 things, they're going to stick to their 6. They can make the changes and make the new, push for the advertising because they really feel from a good place. Here's where we are as a company. Here's what we think we can do.
Yeah.
Or we stay the same because we really played this out. Because there's going to be things that you're going to say no to. I mean, you as a business leader sitting in this office, you're going to say, we're not going to do that because of blah, blah, blah. But you said it from a positive point, like we played this out. I understand that there's opportunities there, blah, blah, blah. But here's what I'd like for you to do maybe instead. Here's what our plan is because here's a different or better opportunity because we played this out. I mean, is that safe to say? Because you're not going to be able to say yes to everything. I mean, you just can't. I mean, you really just can't.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we take a shotgun approach to strategy, and I'm a big fan of digging more deep holes than a lot of shallow holes, which is funny because it's kind of ironically different than what I'm doing with my social media strategy right now, because I'm gaining a lot of exposure with a lot of different people, like a very disparate population. But I'm not forging these really deep, meaningful relationships.
I feel like right now, like just because you said, I disagree. Because in my mind, when you say like a social media type situation, there's so many avenues that you could go through. I mean, you could be on Facebook, you could be on Instagram, you could be on TikTok, Snapchat, whatever else is out there. But you've picked LinkedIn because it fits your, and you didn't say no to Facebook because it's a stupid platform, or you didn't say no to these things. You just said, okay, well, because I've looked at all these things, you looked at Instagram, you said, well, because it doesn't really fit the model that I'm going for. You looked at Facebook, it's a little different, it's really cool, I have a personal one, but for this purpose, because you looked at it from a positive light and figured out where the positives and negatives are, the pros and cons, you pick LinkedIn and you're going as deep as possible into that. And I feel, and just because you're bouncing around in there, you're still in the same, oil. You're still in the same hole there. I mean, you're still in the same mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're kind of talking about from a platform standpoint. I mean, yeah, I'm all in on LinkedIn for sure. 100%.
That's what I'm saying.
I guess what I was talking about is like broadcasting my message and exposure to like a broad group of people versus like calling individuals and be like, hey, would you like to have lunch and like let's really get to know each other and let's be like have a super deep personal relationship. Now, what's funny about it is I'm going to contradict myself too, because I broadcast out on LinkedIn to like hundreds, thousands, whatever it is, right? A lot of people, and then certain people will come back to you and like really like it, like for real, like it like in a deep way, and then with those people, I'm all in on those people. I dig deep holes with those people, whether they can help me or not, whether it's a client or a competitor or some random person in another country that just likes, or
the content,
or caricaturist in Chicago. Shout out Donna, And so anyway, I kind of getting off topic, but I'm a big fan of digging deep holes. Oh, here's where I was going with this though, right? Is I think that going back to the is it worth it? Because is it worth it is about strategic investments. And when we talk about strategy, this is something that's really important, like that I think about a lot, right? Strategy. And I think that companies try to change their strategy too much. I think that we should make a decision, a strategic decision. We should get real quiet, get in a room with the right people for sometimes multiple days and hash out what we truly believe in our heart of hearts to be the best strategy, put that plan in place, and then go and execute on that. And that we need to be committed to that. And I'm talking about committed like not like, hey, we're going to try and see what happens. Not like, hey, let's think of some ideas. No, I'm talking about like 3-year commitment.
Yeah, like so, but
like 3 years. Like for 3 years, I'm going to every single,
that's what every region
DRRC event. I'm going to be on the board. The board is a 3-year term.
That's the thing. I totally
don't
agree
go
with you.
one time and be like, oh, I didn't meet anybody. I can't.
Because that's the other thing you're saying. Like the answer to is it worth it is yes. But if you work it,
is it worth it? If you work it,
I mean, I'm putting that song in.
Yeah.
So like, I mean,
shout out to Missy Elliott.
Only way you can figure out is if something is worth it is by trying it and trying it again and trying it again. But then part of the strategy part, I mean, I totally agree because so many people will say like, oh, this is what we're gonna do. Here's our strategy for this year, and then it just changes because maybe it didn't work as famously as they thought, right? But then part of a real strategy though is there's a time structure. There's a time constraint on the strategy. The strategy is a 3-year thing. It's not here's our strategy.
I think a strategic plan should be a 3-year plan or sometimes a 5-year plan
or whatever.
But I think that what happens is you have leaders that will try to say, okay, our strategy for 2020, okay, our strategy for 2021. Well, it really should be our strategy for 2020 through 2023, and we're going to meet annually to tweak how we execute on the strategy, tactical stuff.
Because strategy isn't step by step. I mean,
you can't change who you are as an organization every year.
Yeah.
Like what you stand for.
Vision cannot change.
Vision, principles, who you are as a company, your culture.
Yeah.
I mean, like those kinds of things are strategic to me, and you can't just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I'm different this year. It's 2020 and it's time to be different."
You can't, as a company. So you basically what you're saying is you can't, as a company, say like on January 1st or 2nd, say New Year, New Me.
No.
You can't just be like, yo.
No. Now you could say New Marketplace. New me.
I don't even think you can.
Oh,
you can't even do that.
I saw in the news this morning, Detroit versus everybody closed down 4 stores, fired 35 people, and now they're going into more like they got 2 flagship stores and they're going to. For those of you who don't know, they make hoodies, T-shirts, whatever.
Yep. Detroit versus everybody.
Urban apparel from Detroit. Detroit versus everybody. You've probably seen now, other things like Michigan versus everybody or.
I like the ones like My God versus My Enemies. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't. No, so a lot of people are taking aggressive. This, right? Point being is though they closed down these stores and now they're shifting strategy because you know what? brick and mortar clothing retail is getting its butt kicked right now, and they're saying, hey, we're going to pivot, we're going to get a warehouse, and we're going to go e-commerce. Makes sense to me. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
And so that's a situation where, Detroit versus everybody's not changing who they are. They're still an urban apparel company with this tagline.
And their strategy,
But their delivery mechanism, their distribution is going to change because the way people buy things is changing.
Yeah, slight change in strategy.
It's not like they're going to start making lampshades.
Right, their main goal and vision is to still have more and more people wear their gear, right?
Yeah, I think so. So I think that is key. And when I see companies who do this and leaders who say, all right, now, let's get together because we got to come up with a strategy for 2020 because 2019 wasn't working, and they do this every year.
That's a scary meeting.
Think about the type of person that does that every year, and how do you respect that person? Do you think that person knows who they are? Does that person have confidence in what they're doing? When I see leaders do this, it's because they're desperate. They're like desperate.
Yeah.
Everything I said yesterday, forget it. We're trying this now.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
And so I'm a big fan of thought. Put a lot of thought into your strategy, and then now it's time to stop thinking and start doing.
Yeah.
And a perfect example for me is so when the alarm goes off in the morning, right? And so I set my alarm for 5 a.m. I wake up, I go to the gym. That's what I've been doing lately, right?
5 a.m.?
New year, new me, Tommy.
5 a.m.?
5 a.m.
Wow.
Unless I was doing something crazy the night before, then 6 a.m. But anyway, point being is I do that. Now, where I start to falter is when that alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and I start thinking. If I start thinking,
it's over.
I'm dead.
It's over.
I'm done.
It's over.
I'm back in bed. I'm hitting snooze 8 times until it's 7. And you know what I mean? It's a mess.
That little 3 hours goes by so fast.
And so you can't think at that point. Your strategy is I'm going to get healthy. Your plan is I'm going to go to the gym every morning at 5 a.m. And now thinking serves no more purpose at that point. Once you've done your strategy and your plan, your thinking can only defeat you.
Yeah.
And now it's time to execute.
Yeah.
I actually went to a
my question, I had a side note. I got a question here for you.
Go ahead.
So strategy, right? I guess so if you're my thing is I don't feel like if some people I think people get way too detailed in the strategy because once you're like locked in at say 5 a.m. this is what I'm doing, right? And then you find out that this disrupts like your whole your family life, your everything, you're more tired and cranky, whatever it is, right? I think the strategy should be like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times, 5 times a week, right?
Your strategy is I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to be a healthy person. Your strategy is I'm going to be a healthy person. Your plan is I'm going to go to the gym every day. Tactically, like when I get there, what is my routine? Am I running? Am I weightlifting? Am I,
Because like in a game or whatever, in the motion, something may happen and you realize like this plan or whatever we had is just not gonna work right. It's just wrong marketplace, wrong whatever. We have to switch. But the objective, the main goal is still to win this. Is still to hit all these conferences. We just have to, when we get there, we need to change up something. Like, so at the end of the year, it's not like, we're changing everything about the company or our goal. We're no longer shipping cars.
I think that's very fair, right? And that's a great distinction to draw because I do believe in iterating, and I do believe at learning quickly from your mistakes,
on the move, right?
And getting better, right? And I think that having frequent feedback and incorporating that feedback is really having a feedback culture. I think it's just really, and having a place where people could just be straight up with each other and saying,
you're dead in the water if you don't have that.
Yeah, you really have to do that, and I'm a big fan of having feedback on a weekly basis and not on a quarterly basis or an annual basis. A lot of people have annual reviews, and then you get in the room and you're shocked at what you hear But if you've been talking weekly to your boss, you won't be shocked.
What?
You'll have known for 7 weeks this has been a problem.
Yeah, you've been slacking.
You know,
I think that,
so I think that's a good distinction you make.
Yeah, I think that along with the millennials get like this weird backlash from other generations. I think one of the things that we bring to the marketplace is that constant need for feedback. And not necessarily negative or positive. I mean, negative or positive.
I think we crave it. We crave it.
I mean, because it's more like more transparency. Even it's just like, hey, like, how am I doing? Am I doing all right? You doing good? Or like, I'm gonna let you know as my supervisor how you doing. Like, if you could help me out do this, if you could help do this more. Like, I asked I'll shout out to Tito Perez. I asked him. I said, hey, what could I do? I mean, because a lot of times, as a manager or a supervisor, you don't ask like, what could I do better for you, though? I mean, because we just say like, okay, you hit this number, you gotta do this or whatever. But why not say, what can I do to help you? I mean, and then at that point, you empower him or her to say, here's what I need, here's what I'd like to see. And then now you two can work together and have more of a symbiotic relationship and get things done. This is a sidebar out the world.
Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely. I think that is generational because I think millennials do require frequent feedback. I mean, just the nature of what we do. We post something online, then what the next thing we do? We look how many likes did we get? How much comments did we get?
Anybody liking this?
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm like terrible. Like what happened? Like oh man, this is really bad. And then we iterate and we fix it and we do better next time, right?
Yeah.
Whereas older generations that I've worked with, they'll be like, hey, listen, I'll let you know if there's a problem. No news is good news. Just keep doing what you're doing.
But I think that's
really.
I think that goes to your point, though. The reason why there's always like these big jumps between like, okay, we're going to look at this quarterly or annually instead of constantly changing and adjusting to whatever situation you're in as a company. And like say like your marketing push. If you just say like, hey, we're going to do this for 6 months and we're going to check on it at the end, then that's why people change so dramatically at the end because they're like, oh, this didn't even work. But if you were talking about it and kind of checking and looking at your plan or your strategy the whole time, that thing, it wouldn't even be, it'll morph as you go along. And I think that's where people mess up. People say, what's the ROI on this? And then they go into a conference and they just, at the end of the year, what did it look like? How did we do? And it's too late by then because you've done the same thing for the next 4 or 5 visits.
I think, and now I'm kind of questioning my whole premise here a little bit too.
Are you?
Well, just a little bit about, having 3-year strategies and not changing. I think that the ROI discussion is a placeholder or a proxy for experience. And I do think that if you know what you're doing and you know what the right thing to do is, you'll know if you're doing, you'll know if you're getting a positive response from it, and having to answer the ROI question can frankly be crippling. And the converse of that is people can use an ROI statistic that they've come up with as a reason to just go all in on something
that maybe
without really understanding what they're doing and why it was successful. Because numbers are dangerous because numbers can numbers can lie to you. I mean, you want to lose 2 pounds? Go take a dump. Did you accomplish anything? No, you didn't. But you lost 2 pounds.
I took a dump. Though.
You know what I mean? How scalable is that? So, I mean, that's what I'm learning as I'm getting healthy this year. So anyway.
So yeah, I agree about the dump and everything you just said.
Yeah.
I think that.
Did I just blow you up right there? I just totally blew it up.
No. I agree, but I think that if people look at it, I'm done with this whole thing.
This whole conversation. Is it worth it? Is it worth it?
No, I think. No, yeah, okay, yeah. So that's where we are. So there are. Once you've asked the question, is attending AMSA worth it, right? And if this is if you've never gone to a conference or whatever, and this is you're in this arena, if you're not, then probably not worth it.
Yeah,
you know?
The AMSA, American Moving Storage Association. If you didn't know, so if you're in the moving business or the relocation business, a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of relocation professionals go to AMSA because it's a fantastic way to meet with all your suppliers in one room.
You know, it's crazy. A lot of relocation companies that don't even attend AMSA like check for AMSA and see what they're doing and see what's going on because all their suppliers are in it. You know, so if AMSA's announcing some new legislation or whatever, it's very pertinent to, you know, what's happening at ERC. I mean, if certain positions may not really care because it doesn't really matter to that, you know, certain company.
ERC goes to AMSA. Yeah, I've seen some of the staff members from there go.
But so you decide, like, okay, I'm gonna try this out, right? We're gonna go first time ever, and you go and you find out, you get back and you're following up, and it didn't stick, right? I think that people, like you said, they'll just never try that again. Instead of asking themselves the right question, why wasn't this one worth it?
Yeah, and what could I have done differently?
Yeah. You look not at the organization or at the at DRC. You don't look at DRC. Well, it wasn't. They didn't have this. They didn't have that, and we're not going to go again. You say, well, did I go in there with the right frame of mind? Did I go prepared? Did I know who was going to be there? Could I say my connections at such and such company when I ran into the president? That's another thing too. Like if you're going for the first time, and you know some people's names that you've been cold calling or whatever, if you're prepared and you can run into somebody at ARPAN and drop like a name, like, oh yeah, I deal with such and 3-4 names, they're like, okay, this kid knows what he's talking about. And that's in the beginning, I just acted like I knew what the heck was going on, but I did not, you know? And so if you're not prepared for conferences, you need to be real with yourself at the end and say, okay, I did that wrong.
Right. And learning from that is preparing for the next one.
For the next one.
What happens is people don't do the next one, and then they never reap the benefits of having failed in the first one. So if failures are kind of the stepping stones to success, is one of my favorite sayings. You know, if you fail and now you quit, then you've never capitalized on what you've learned from that failure.
Nope.
So I think that's kind of important, and that's kind of where I come up with, like, hey, it's really a 3-year strategy.
Yeah,
you got to commit for 3 years. You know, I mean, I just helped somebody write a plan for a new person that they were bringing on board. You know, one of my clients is bringing somebody on board, and they reached out to me and said, hey, you know, Ben, you're well connected. You understand this industry. I'm bringing somebody on. They don't have any experience in this industry. I'd like to kind of help them understand who the players are, where they need to be, and what they should be doing. I'm like, cool. I sat down for 10 minutes and I just lined it all out for them. Put little links in there and everything. And this actually might be a great episode to do, actually, is, hey, if you're getting started in mobility and you want to build your career, here's like a checklist of things you need to probably be doing. And I put it out there for them, and I'm like, I hope that they give this person the amount of time they need to accomplish all these things. If they want to have this level of person, I hope they don't give up when this person's down here. Yeah. You know, when they're doing their arc. And it's also one of those things where it's like exponential.
Yeah, of course.
You probably can think back on a time in your career where stuff just started to click.
Yeah, everything slowed. It seems like
everything slowed down. Everything slowed down a little bit. You know, you went from like having to introduce yourself to people now coming up to you. You went from knowing who people were to people knowing who you were. You know, you went from all of a sudden sending out all these emails and trying to get no response to all of a sudden like people start sending you emails with like RFPs, and business starts coming in, and it's like starts getting easy. You know, and that's kind of like that curve, right? That exponential curve up, right? And things start happening relatively quickly, you know, and so what happens?
Then you're in the.
But you got to put in that 2 to 3 years, and for some people that learning curve is longer.
Yeah,
right.
Or some people it's shorter. It just clicks.
It just happens.
Like just a quick example on this whole. So you talked. I think you talked me into pushing for ERC, for us to go.
Yeah,
because for a long time we didn't.
I didn't go for a while.
Yeah, and because it was
boggled my mind.
No, it was because years back when we were very new to the marketplace, we went. And it wasn't worth it, right? And I mean, I wasn't there yet. You
mean it wasn't worth it? You didn't reap the benefits you would have liked to have reaped
as a company. I wasn't there, and the people that went, it just didn't work out. And it was just maybe at the time our company wasn't ready for that arena, whatever it was, right?
Yep.
Many reasons. So when we just looked at ERC, well, yeah, it's not a thing, but that's whatever. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And eventually we tried it out. In the first year, but we had already really been, we had been to AMSA many times, IAM many times, so we were good at the whole conference life, right? And so as soon as we walked in, we knew what to do at that point. So if you're only going to your local moving and storage association things, or your regional relocation meetings and things like that, and they're worth it because they get you used to walking into a room full of strangers.
You got to get those reps. You got to get reps in.
Yeah. And then the next thing you know, you step into a bigger arena. Two things. Number one, if you go to DRC, GLRC, or Detroit Regional Relocation Council, Great Lakes Relocation Council Conference, things like that in your area, when you go to ERC, you're going to know 100 people just like that. Because you're putting your reps in at those places, but then also you get those reps in on how to actually be a successful attendee of a conference. So it's absolutely worth it. Even if you don't get any business from that moment 2 years in a row, you've primed yourself to jump into bigger arenas, I think.
Yeah, and so using your example, what was interesting was your company had been going to certain associations, not going to ERC. And then going to these associations, so you had established, A, you knew how to do a conference properly. B, you had already had some really great clients in the relocation space. C, you had already had developed relationships.
Yep.
So when you decided, we're going to go back into ERC, you got instant value from it. Now imagine if you didn't have any of those three things to begin with, right? You didn't have, you didn't know how to do a conference. You didn't have clients in the space. You didn't have relationships in the space to draw upon, right? You go in there cold with none of those three things. How many conferences, how many ERCs would it take you to feel like, gosh, this is worth it?
Like 3. I mean, honestly,
3. And at 15 a crack, and the grueling, the feeling of not knowing anybody, being a fish out of water, having to answer for 3 years on what your ROI was from all this investment. Your boss is looking at you like, where is it? Where is it, Thomas? Where is it? What's the likelihood you're ever going to get to that third one?
Yeah, I mean, you got
slim, real slim.
Yeah, I mean,
right? So that's why that is the trap of, is it worth it?
Because the answer is going to be no after 1 year, 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why the answer always has to be yes, and that's why your commitment to these things has to be 3 years.
Yeah.
And unless you're willing to commit 3 years, then don't even start. Because you're just pissing away money in year 1 and 2.
And then people notice, though. If you. Especially if your company already has somewhat of a name, and people recognize the name, but just not you or any representation from your company, and you show up to like an AMSA, and then you just don't come the next year, people notice. People are like, oh well, I guess they're not. And you just never come back again. Oh well, what happened? Then you start like, oh well, it just didn't make. Then now it's not worth it for you. And people that say that the conferences that we attend. Not saying that because we know the right conferences to go to, but they're the conferences for our industry. So people that say like, oh yeah, that was really not worth it for us to go. Like what, you move people though, right? Like, or you work with RMCs, right? And oh yeah, we do. You work with real estate people, right? Yeah. So why would you?
Yeah, and you don't have too much business, right?
Right. I mean,
so why are you
can do more, right?
Right.
And so like the thing, if you can answer those questions, and if you can answer those questions properly and have like a good reason or whatever, then maybe it's not worth it for you. But if you can't, and if somebody says like if you have like a checklist of 5 things that you need to have, and you can check 4 of them or 3 of them, you need to go.
Well, and if you're a leader that doesn't know for a fact if it's worth it, then
you got to go.
Your ass needs to be out there.
You got to go. Yeah,
because I think that's hilarious.
You go
when people sit back in the office, send a salesperson for 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is, to go to a conference.
Yeah.
Salesperson comes back on fire, jacked up, loves it. They're like, yeah, so much opportunity, whatever. You're like, really? You know, who'd you meet?
Well,
really? What'd you learn? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, we'll see.
Right.
You're like, okay.
Yeah, then
you know what? You go and you tell me it wasn't great.
Right, yeah.
You know, and they don't.
But they would know, but they will.
Don't.
They will. That type. If you're gonna ask that type of question, you're gonna go there, and it's not gonna be worth it because they're gonna sit in the.
Oh, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Like,
back to the reason why is it worth it is a bad question to begin with because you're starting from in your head.
How can we make this worth it?
How can we make it worth it? Right.
I'm following you, and if the answer to how can we make this worth it isn't substantial enough, and you have other things that you can replace that with, then do those things.
Or is improbable, right? Like what do we need to do in order to have a very high end outcome here? Well, you know, that's a lot of ifs.
Yeah.
It's a lot of ifs. Yeah. Okay, well, then let's reallocate. Let's reallocate here where we think we have some more low hanging fruit.
Yeah, let's not just shoot down an idea and replace it with nothing but like busy work. You know, let's figure out something else we can do. I like that my salesperson just came to me with like this opportunity. Let's figure something out.
Yeah, and here's another thing I've noticed too is that and this happens at ERC, this happens at some degree at AMSA, but this happens at ERC a lot, right? And people are like, you know, I don't go to ERC anymore. You know, for me it wasn't worth it. Whatever, you know, and these are like my competitors. These are other, you know, RMCs sometimes, whatever. And I'm like looking at them, okay,
judgment.
Cool. You know, yes.
Don't judge me.
Straight judging. And I'm looking at them like, well, gosh, you know, I got a lot of business. I wonder what, you know, if everybody in the room is crushing and you're not, then that's on you.
Might be something you're doing.
You know, if every conference you go to sucks, maybe you suck. Like you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, what am I doing wrong? I'm coming incorrect right now.
This just in, guys, you might suck.
You might suck. And you need to look in the mirror and say, hey, do I suck? Because if I'm going to the same place as everybody else is going, and they're having success and I'm not, either I'm not going long enough, I'm not investing myself fully, emotionally, physically, financially into the process.
A game is not there.
Yeah, I'm not putting in the hours. A lot of people, you know what? A lot of people that suck, you know what they do? They show up late, they leave early, and while they're there, they're not present.
They go, yeah, man, this just sucks.
Yeah, and they start with that mentality.
You came as a bum.
Yeah, so you did not come. You got to, you know, be pumped up about it. And that's another thing. You know what? If you're not pumped up to go, then don't go.
Because you wasted money.
You're wasting your money, wasting your time.
If you come to an event and you're just, or anything, if you're not pumped up about this new marketing, whatever it is, right? If you're not going to come correct, just don't come at all. I mean, because it's going to show.
Yeah. You're not going to accomplish anything.
Because if you go to a conference, like so. Let's just go down to like a sales call, right? Yeah. If you're doing a cold call and you're not feeling jazzed about it, and you know whatever, you get on that phone, cold call, and just bomb because you are, you know, because you're just not in it, and you don't think you're scared. You don't think it's worth calling this big RMC. You don't think you can make it. And then
when you're done with that call, you're like, I knew this wasn't gonna work.
And then or the next time you feel good about it, they remember that you bombed. Like cold calls are important. Like your first impression is so important. So if you're gonna go to an AMSA or an ERC, just come like correct though. Like even if you don't think it's worth it, you better figure out a way.
Well, that's the other thing too. Like me, I think you do this to some degree also. Like what I like to do before I go to conferences, I like to look fresh.
Oh man, I like everything.
I get my hair cut. I get my I get all my like my shirts pressed right. Maybe order some new shirts. You know. Maybe get a new suit or something like that. Maybe
for the longest time, I think every time
shoes.
I don't think I've ever been to like one of the bigger conferences without buying something before I went.
Oh yeah. Sometimes, so we've gone a couple of times and we went shopping together. I think in San Diego we went shopping. Yep. You know, you get some ties, some pocket squares. You know, start looking fly. You know, because it is about confidence.
Yeah, and then also it's a sea of people. Like, why would you not want to stand out as much as possible?
Stand out.
I mean, not like you're not peacocking here, but you're just at least.
Says my man with the red pocket square right now. Yeah, looking photo shoot fresh right now. Yeah, but no, it's funny when I go to these things, and sometimes I see people that like didn't get their hair cut or something. And I'm like, what, did this sneak up on you? Like, did you not know that this was coming? Like, you didn't. Did you like catch a Greyhound over here? Did you not get a flight? Or?
And if your style is just a little different, right? And like, say people that don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, check him out. If you don't know Gary V, right at this point, and you're interested in social media at all or business, you need to get on it, and you're missing some really great talk. But so Gary V, right? He has a different thing. Like, he'll wear like a sweatshirt or whatever, but he brings his A game every time. You know, if you're
so? What you mean?
No, like, I mean, so Gary V. So if you're not gonna present yourself in like, if you're not gonna go all out, like, say for instance, you're not gonna wear the 3-piece suit and the tie and the lapel pin and the B, cufflinks and all that stuff, right? If you're not gonna do that because that's not your thing, you better do your thing like all the way.
Yeah, whatever you do it well.
Do it very well.
And the way I look at it is like have a rationale for everything you do.
I mean, because you don't
have a
reason.
Look like put thought, put thought into it.
And then
so if you're Gary V and you're rocking K-Swiss sneakers to a conference,
they're his sneakers.
They got my name on them.
They're Gary
and they
V
pay
sneakers.
Me to wear them.
Right.
Oh, I got this T-shirt for some rando startup. Yeah, well. They pay me to wear this.
Yeah, this is all for a reason.
If you see me at a conference and I'm rocking a T-shirt, you know that I either own that company or they're paying me to wear it.
Yeah, exactly. And
if they're not, I'm gonna wear something fly.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's almost like you're also respecting yourself, but you're respecting the people around you too. Just saying, like, because if you come to an event that's all everybody's suit and tied up or whatever, and you just come with like a polo on, and you're the only one, and it just doesn't feel right. I mean, people are gonna be nice. You're not gonna look at you weird, but they're judging you.
Polos are a problem.
They're judging you.
Polos are a problem. I mean,
golf course.
Here's my problem. It just lacks inspiration. Just have inspiration.
I don't really get jazzed when I see like I've said jazz twice today. I don't get jazzed.
Although you, of all the people in a polo, you look really nice.
I look great in a polo. So sometimes I have to like slap myself to making me leave my polos at home.
Yeah.
Unless we're going to a golf course, like, that's different.
See, Thomas, going back to the Gary V analogy, I'll see Thomas, like, especially, like, because we both fly out of Detroit, right? So a lot of times we run into each other. And Thomas, Gary V, and Thomas is straight Gary V. Thomas is in the joggers, and he's got the kicks on and whatever. But it's still, I see what he's doing with it. Like, it makes sense, though.
Yeah, it don't look like I rolled out of bed.
It looks good, you know what I mean? It looks all right.
Present yourself well. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, put some thought into it.
So, actionable items, right? You ask yourself, how can I make this work? A new opportunity comes.
Never ask yourself, is it worth it?
And then you change.
If somebody else asks you, is it worth it? The answer is always yes. And reframe the question to start from yes and not from no, and say, instead of is it worth it, say, how can we get the best possible outcome?
Yeah. Yep. And then put in the work.
We need to put those tips 1, 2, 3
so number 1
on the screen.
Number 1, don't ask is it worth it. Number 2,
if somebody asks you is it worth it, the answer is always yes.
Big yes. Right? Number 3,
it's really yes if we do it right.
If we do it right. Number 3, how can we make this worth it? Right?
How can we do it right?
How can we do it right?
I mean, once you have a plan, don't overthink it.
Yeah, just go.
Just do the plan.
Absolutely.
And do it really well.
Do it hard. Well,
he's trying to get me to say that.
I wanted you to.